Canta, compañero, que tu voz sea disparo, que con las manos del pueblo no habrá canto.
Dragi prieteni, suntem în hotelul Melia din Caracas, unde foarte mulți membri ai Congresului împotriva fascismului au venit din diferite țări ale lumii și alături de mine este domnul Costas Isychos din Grecia, care a fost adjunct al ministrului apărării în Grecia. Și avem plăcerea să discutăm cu dumnealui despre acest eveniment la care participăm și vom vorbi în continuare în engleză. So, Mr. Costas, I understood that we are representatives from 95 countries and we are in total about 1,200 participants.
That's correct.
So it's an amazing event.
It's a worldwide event.
How would you describe this event in Venezuela against fascism, Congress against?
Well, I think that this is an international initiative taking place in Caracas. Caracas is very important because Caracas, recently in Venezuela we had elections, presidential elections, which were a worldwide news war between the West and the rest of the world, which is not subjugated by the Western media, Washington media, European Union media. And of course, fascism has made an appearance in Venezuela. It's been here for decades, but now it's resurging. And we have had even 27 people who were assassinated 2 or 3 days after the elections, just because they were supporting Nicolás Maduro and the United Socialist Venezuelan Party.
Yes, actually at the event when we participate, Mr. Maduro came and he gave some examples regarding the radicalism that was created in this society in Venezuela. And I think it's worth to mention that a woman, leader of political party, has been killed by a young boy of 13 years because he read on TikTok that we need to kill Chavistas.
This is shocking. This is shocking because we see the connection of fascism through the new technologies, through the media, so social networks, where a 13-year-old boy is indoctrinated into becoming a killer. And he killed this lady who was just a leader of the community, helping people who are marginalized socially, a leader of her party, governing party, and she was brutally killed. Now this 13-year-old boy, of course, was apprehended immediately, but through special psychologists, because he's underage, he's a young boy, and he must be treated socially, psychiatrically, and psychologically. He's not just any ordinary criminal, we should say. And at the same time, President Maduro mentioned that there was a recent law in Great Britain stating that 15-year-old delinquents should be put in jails with adults, not with people in their own age. So we see this difference. And the West talks about a dictatorship. The West talks about no freedom, no social care. And we see this even taking place of a young boy who was indoctrinated by fascism. And Mr. Maduro made a very eloquent example of how the European Union is integrating itself into fascist type of behavior, even against younger people who are committing crimes.
It's important to add here in this context that European Union, together with the United States, they did not recognize the result of the elections in Venezuela that took place in 28th of July this year, and they consider that the opponent of President Maduro actually won. But of course it's a lie, because the Supreme Court of Venezuela admitted that Mr. Maduro won.
And 9 of his 10 opponents admitted that he was the winner. Only the one who fled the country recently, a few days ago, Mr. Edmundo González Urrutia, who was offered asylum, political asylum in Spain, is the only one that says, I won. Even the other 9 opponents of President Maduro, who are very fierce opponents belonging to other ideological political parties, adversaries to the governing party, have admitted that Mr. Maduro is the winner.
Actually, the electoral system in Venezuela is well known as being extremely efficient. I mean, you cannot fraud this system. There are parallel ways of counting the votes, and it's very hard. But still, the representatives of the European Union and the United States refused to participate in monitoring the elections, and after that they said, "Oh, we know that
there were more than 2,000.
It was fraud."
There were more than 2,000 observers, electoral observers, invited in Venezuela, not only by the governing party, but the opposition parties, who invited their brother and sister parties in the Christian democracy or in the extreme right wing in the European Union and other countries, and they did not participate. So one can make conclusions of before and after what happened.
It's obvious if you think, if you have critical thinking, but as we know,
critical thinking is disappearing.
Yeah, the Western system, United States and European Union, they are using narratives that keep repeating in order to hypnotize population, and population who does not have critical thinking, they start to accept this narrative as being the truth.
It's because when you speak half the truth, it's actually a lie. There's no phrase that can be changing the meaning of truth. You either tell the truth as a whole, or you better not tell it at all. It is the same story with Corina Machado, who is actually the big leader of the opposition. She was not allowed to participate in the elections. And when we hear it in the Western news that the decision of the courts in Venezuela prohibited her becoming an electoral candidate for the presidency, we hear this in the West and we say, oh, this doesn't sound good.
It's really dictatorship.
Yeah, maybe this is, but nobody told us that the decision of the court was taken while she was a member of the parliament in the opposition. She participated in a meeting, an international meeting of the Organization of American States, where Cuba and Venezuela are not allowed to participate. And she went to this meeting representing Panama.
Another state.
Another state, and she's a member of the Venezuelan parliament. Can you imagine if in my country, in Greece, I am invited to an international meeting and I represent Romania? And if you're in the Romanian parliament, you go to an international meeting and you represent Greece. These things does not happen in international.
To avoid it.
Yes, this is not international diplomacy. Absolutely. This is international piracy, and she has been indicted for this.
So the decision of the Venezuelan government was justified.
Of course, she overcame and overruled the conduct of any parliamentarian in the Venezuelan parliament.
And you told us a bit earlier that today or yesterday, Venezuela took a decision to set a part of Spain because of.
Yes, the National Parliament of Venezuela, while we are here in Caracas, just last night had a decision taken to cut complete diplomatic and economic and commercial ties with Spain. Mm-hmm. Why? Because Spain, while they received and gave asylum to the main opponent of Nicolas Maduro, Edmundo González Urrutia, at the same time they did not recognize the legal presidency and the legal election of President Maduro. So it is, what I'm giving you as an information is just what you asked me before. The European Union does not send observers to the elections. After the elections, they keep their distance. And now they say we don't recognize Maduro. I mean,
yes, because the elections were fraud.
Yes, this is not such an innocent fairy tale.
It's a narrative.
It's a narrative, and a very well-planned narrative. And it's not told to the European public. It's not told directly.
They did the same 6 years ago with Juan Guaido. The same recipes.
Juan Guaido is the copy-paste of Urrutia is the copy-paste of
Yes.
Guaido
Yeah.
a few years ago. And Guaido now has disappeared from the political scene. He's in the United States, and he's being indicted in the United States for fraud and money laundering by the United States. So how many people know this?
Yeah, because people in our countries, in Greece and Romania, they follow only the mainstream media, especially, and they're brainwashed. And
Brainwashing is unfortunately a trend, and you're a journalist, but in today's brainwashing, journalists do not make investigative journalism, and you're losing your jobs because of influencers,
Yeah, but here in
and they cannot replace you,
in
of course.
Venezuela, at this Congress, we offer another perspective, a real one, and that's why I invite many people to talk in order to bring to you, our audience, another point of view. Because if we follow only mainstream media, we gain to become brainwashed, as I said. But Mr. Costas, I want to ask you something else regarding Greece. Which is the situation of Greece present days? Because we know in Romania that Greece has been subjected to some exploitation of the European Union, and you were in a very bad economic situation.
Well, the European Union, along with Washington in the early 90s, destroyed an entity in Europe called Yugoslavia.
Yes.
They destroyed it. And of course, this was a brutal war, an unjust war, destroying a country. Now, Greece became a victim of an economic war, which is almost the same. Of course, we do not have people killed by bombs, but we had the highest rate of suicides in the European Union during the years of the economic packages of the IMF and the Troika. We're still suffering from that. Greece is not.
Romania is pretty the same.
So you understand that our countries, Balkan countries, Eastern countries in Europe, we are third category citizens in Europe. This is unfortunately a German Europe, or a Franco-German Europe, better said. And I think that our people, from their historical experience, know that when somebody knocks the door on your home and says, we offer a free meal for you, or a free help, they want something in return. And usually they take your home. You get a meal, but they take your home. So the parallel is that they want to take our countries, they want to take our youth, they want to brainwash them, they want to take anything that would produce for our people. This is robbery.
One of the first steps that they are doing is to capture the leadership of the country. In Romania, they succeeded after the coup d'etat in 1989. They put leaders formed by Soros institutes, and now Romania is captive to these Euro-Atlantic interests. How about Greece?
I think in Greece and in Romania and many other European Union countries, political leaders are fabricated in mediatic centers. They don't talk a lot about politics. They talk a lot more about what they like to eat, where they like to go for holidays, or what their favorite football team is, and less politics. So less programs, less social programs for the people. And this is a new laboratory in Europe, in the European Union. We are the most advanced laboratory, socio-economic and political laboratory of fascism of the 21st century. Right now it's disguised. It doesn't present itself as a hereditary movement of Mussolini and Hitler. Of course it's not. But its strategic goals and its methods are very simple.
But the leadership of Greece, how is orientated now? I mean, do they have still a nationalist orientation, or they are totally obeying?
Greece is losing its independence. It's lost its independence. An independent country. It's a NATO member country, like Romania.
Yeah.
You are going to have the biggest military NATO base,
Yes.
US base in
And
all
I
of
heard
Europe.
You also.
Yes,
You have a lot of NATO bases.
We have 15 military
15.
facilities. The Alexandroupolis port in northern Greece is the vertical corridor between the military help and military aid that is given to Ukraine today, and it's going north up the way to the Baltic countries. So this is a preparation for future aggression and future conflicts in Eastern Europe. We must be aware of this. The multiplication of military bases in our countries is a danger of losing the oxygen we breathe. It's a political suicide for our countries to become NATO colonies.
They are actually occupation troops.
Yes, and as occupation troops, they need to have bars, they need to have friendly women and friendly men, and they need to become the Cuba of the 50s. And we do not want to become the Cuba of the 50s. We want to have our people to be proud of what they are and what they will conquer in the future for themselves and for their children and grandchildren. Happy lives, full of peace and cooperation and collaboration among all peoples. This trend is growing. It's growing. It's a growing need of humanity to have balance, to have harmony, to be away from war and away from conflicts that bring death and destruction.
We need an alternative, because dollar, the sanctions, everything became a tool of hegemony.
That's correct. And now it's being lost. And they're replacing their hegemony of the currency and the dollar with the hegemony of the social contacts through the internet, through the three big oligarchs of the world, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos. They're portrayed as the saviors of humanity. And what they want is they portray that the future is us, the few, the ones to control the mind, the present, the past, and the future of humanity. And we must stand against this.
They create narratives. We can see with this climate change, with pandemics, wars.
I think they will use anything in their power. I will give an example that was said, and it's not my words. I don't want to steal someone's very intelligent phrase, which was given by Jorge Rodriguez, the president of the parliament. He said 40 years ago, if a conspiracy theorist said that the earth was flat, he would probably be attended in a psychiatric hospital to be given help. Now we have millions of followers believing that the earth is flat. And we who believe that the world is round, we sometimes might become a minority. This is the world that you're trying to create.
And 50 years ago, a British comedian said 100 years ago, if you were homosexual, you would be hanged. 20 years ago, if you were homosexual, you would be put in jail, punished, fined. Now I'm leaving the country. Why? Someone asked. Because I'm afraid to become mandatory. So this is what we live now, actually.
The ruling classes, the oligarchs of the world influencers, which are their robots on their mouths in the social media, are trying to portray the world very differently what it is today. I was in Africa many years ago, and I was asked by an African schoolchild in Central Africa, what is a vegan? And I tried to explain to him that vegan is a trend, a modern trend of which for me is acceptable. Anybody can eat whatever they think is right for them. But it's not right to be mandatory to be a vegan because you have to be a vegan. You can be a vegan if you choose to be a vegan. But he told me, you know why we don't have vegans in Africa and in my country? Because we cannot even have a glass of milk per day. We don't have a choice.
Mr. Costas, one final question. As an expert in military, how do you see the conflict that is developing in Ukraine, and also a short reference in Gaza?
Well, the conflict in Europe, in the heart of Europe, is a conflict between NATO and the Russian Federation. It's not a conflict between Ukraine and Russia. I want to be clear on this. This was a planned war since 2014, since the Maidan so-called revolution, which was actually a military coup against a legal elected president, Yanukovych. And this war has been continuing against Russia. It was an economic war, it was a sanctions war, it was an oil war, an energetic war, and now it's a real conflict where millions, hundreds of thousands of lives are being lost. NATO wants to play all their cards to destroy the Russian Federation. But you know, when you say I want to destroy a Russian Federation, it seems they don't know a lot about history of the Russian people. You know, the Red Army, Berlin, Napoleon, and now the NATO troops and Ukraine. I'm not saying Ukraine and the NATO troops. The NATO commanders, the NATO commanders and Ukraine. And, you know, Yugoslavia, okay, they succeeded in destroying the country, but the Russian Federation is not Yugoslavia, it's not Greece, it's not Romania. It's a world nuclear power. And the Russians are very, very keen in keeping their independence and keeping their national integrity. Whether we like the Russian government or whether we don't like it, all people have a right to defend their country. And this is what the Russian Federation is doing.
Especially after 2000, when Putin came to power, Russian Federation became very nationalist because under Gorbachev and Yeltsin, the situation was they were obedient.
It's a country that wants to have independence from the hegemony of the United States. And the United States very clearly says, you know, the struggle between Kamala Harris and Trump in their debates or their differences in their tactics, not their strategy, is who is the worst enemy. Mr. Trump says China, Mrs. Harris says Russia. They don't really disagree. They want to destroy both. They just disagree on how to do it and who to do it with first. This is their differences.
Okay, and a few words about Gaza.
Gaza is the repetition of the genocide of the Second World War by Nazis. Not only against Jews, because sometimes we're told that the Holocaust is only a Holocaust against Jews, which it was. But we had a Holocaust in Latin America by the Spanish and the Portuguese and the British, from North America to Latin America, with tens of millions of indigenous people being assassinated. We had a Holocaust in the Belgian Congo with 8 million Africans being killed by King Leopold, who conquered the Congo. Western colonialists, American imperialism, European imperialism, and colonialism have a long line of holocausts. And unfortunately, Gaza is a new Holocaust against the Palestinians. And all humanity, regardless of what their ideological and political choices are, is to think as human beings first, and then react to what this barbarity is being committed against the Palestinians.
But the international organizations should maintain human rights. It seems to fail because, for instance, United Nations, they offered many resolutions on criticizing Israel, but still they did not manage to solve the problem.
I agree with you. The United Nations has been completely marginalized. The International Court of Hague against crimes against humanity has indicted Netanyahu and many military leaders of Israel. And the president of the Court of Hague said, I am being bullied by Israel and Western countries not to implement this indictment against Netanyahu. So you see that all international organizations, whether it's the Hague or the United Nations and others, are completely sidelined, completely marginalized. Only what Washington says, and their puppy, their caniche dog, as we say in Greece, the European Union, which has lost any sense of European independence and European self-criticism and European humanity, because we had 2 world wars in Europe, and we also had many philosophers in Europe. We had many thinkers for humanity. We must carry on our tradition of being a human race in Europe, in the European Union. We have become, unfortunately, the watchdogs of Washington militarily, economically, and politically.
Yeah, let's hope the situation will change.
We have to do that. There's no other choice.
This kind of congresses, we change mentality, we bring the message to our people.
This Congress in Caracas, which is the first Congress against fascism, imperialism, and colonialism, will not be the last. There will be others, and we must grow and take part in these congresses, bringing our experiences from our own countries, and what President Maduro said yesterday, to create a new international against fascism.
Yes.
This is a necessity for the survival of humanity.
To be united.
Yes.
To work together.
Of course.
Mr. Costas, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and my best to the Romanian people, because in the Balkans we're family, and we must think as a family.
Que tu voz sea disparo, que con las manos del pueblo no habrá canto desarmado. Canta, canta, compañero, canta, canta, compañero, canta, canta, compañero, que no calle tu canción. Si te falta bastimento, tienes ese corazón que tiene latir de bombo, color de vino ancestral. Viene tu cueca de lucha cabalgando un viento austral. Canta, canta, compañero, canta, canta, compañero. Canta, canta, compañero, que tu voz sea disparo, que con las manos del pueblo no habrá canto desarmado. Canta, canta, compañero, canta, canta, compañero, canta, canta, compañero, que no calle tu canción. Si te falta bastimento, tienes ese corazón que tiene latir de bombo, color de vino ancestral. Viene tu cueca de lucha jineteando un viento austral. Canta, canta, compañero, canta, canta, compañero. Los que mueren por la vida no pueden llamarse muertos. Canta, canta, compañero, canta, canta, compañero. Canta, canta, compañero, que no calle tu canción. Si te falta bastimento, tienes ese corazón. Canta, canta, compañero, canta, canta, compañero.